Alrighty booktube, Nikki here with a very special video today. Today I have for you my monthly recommendations for the month of August. Monthly Recommendations is a group on Goodreads that you can join, started by Trina from Between Chapters and Kayla Rain from Kayla Rain. And I'll link both of their channels and the group below. It's really fun. Basically every month there's a bit of a theme and you recommend people books based on that theme. And this month it's all about celebrating a year of monthly recommendations, in which I have made one whole recommendations video. I'm so good at this. But it's an excellent time to catch up because the idea behind this month is that you are recommending people one book based on all of the themes that we've done so far. So I'm just gonna get the ball rolling with the recommending and you'll see what's happening here. So the first theme they had was underrated books, and an underrated book that I would like to recommend to you today is We All Looked Up by Tommy Wallach. Basically there's an asteroid hurtling to Earth and scientists figure out that there's a 2 out of 3 chance that it's gonna hit the Earth, and that's a shame if you're a person living on the Earth. But the story actually follows 4 different teenagers attending the same school, and they all have definitive social labels like the slacker, the overachiever, you get the picture. It's kind of like Breakfast Club at the end of the world. So it follows those 4 characters and their intertwining lives as this asteroid hurtles toward the Earth. The plot gets a little bit weird, but the best thing about this book is the writing. There is not a single page in this book that does not have a line that I want to highlight or tattoo somewhere on my face. Next up we have a book set in school, The Abels by Jeremy Scott. Jeremy Scott is one of the guys behind the CinemaSins channel. You know, where they do the whole thing where they go through the movies and say what they did bad and then they have a little dinging counter at the top, and it's really funny and you should check it out. And I'm sure everyone's heard of it, so I'm gonna shut up now. But this is a story about a boy named Philip who is blind, and he finds out one day that he's actually a superhero and his parents are superheroes, and he lives in a whole town of superheroes and he's gonna go to superhero school. But he finds himself segregated with other students in the special education class of that school, and so he struggles with being left out of things, and the city gets threatened and a bunch of other things are happening. But it's a lot of fun, and if you're an action movie fan or a superhero movie fan, I think you will enjoy it because Jeremy Scott is clearly a big movie buff and it feels like a big action movie. Next up we have creepy books. Now I don't get super creeped out easily by books, but one author that can do it to me every time is Stephen King. So I'd recommend any of his short story collections. I've only read one, but I have bought a couple since because his short stories are just my favorite thing that he's ever written. And so many of them take like a creepy idea like isolation or not being able to see something in the dark, and he pushes the idea as far as it can go and it gets crazy pants. And long after I've put the story down, I'm still thinking about it. This collection called Skeleton Crew also has his story The Mist, which I absolutely love. If you've seen the movie on Netflix, the ending is different in the book, but I like the movie as well. But if you're not a short story fan, then I'd recommend Carrie because it is creepy and it has this whole air of creepy foreshadowing. And I think I get more scared and creeped out by humans doing things than like mystical beasts from outer space. So Stephen King gets me. Next is the trilogy. I actually did a video for the trilogy recommendations, which you can check out. I'll link it somewhere, but I forgot this trilogy. I forgot about it and I was really grumpy pants at myself. And that is the Wall Trilogy or the Silo Trilogy by Hugh Howey. And I also met Hugh Howey. He signed this book for me and he's a lovely, lovely human being. He got really excited that I had a hardcover version of his book. He's like, where did you get a hardcover? Because all we got in Australia of this apparently at that time was paperback. Wall is a dystopian where the Earth's air and atmosphere become unbreathable and unlivable, so everyone lives underground in a silo, and there's a whole bunch of politics to make sure that people can stay alive and everything's highly regulated. But there are some things underlying. Oh, who would have thought corruption in a dystopian? Each book adds a new element and the characters are amazing. Particularly Juliet, who's one of the characters that we follow. She's awesome and capable and pretty young too, so she's easy to relate to. This isn't a young adult novel, but it's totally accessible. I totally recommend this for people that are trying to expand their science fiction maybe out of YA and into adult. Like, go for this, go for it. Next we have a book that you think others should read ASAP. A to the sap. And for that one I'm going with DC Comics Bombshells Volume 1 Enlisted. This is an excellent comic book series. It takes our favorite DC heroines and our favorite lady villains and it puts them into alternate World War II in these cool outfits. The series actually started as like a figure collection, and I heard that they were making a series and I was like, well, that sounds dumb. But this features awesome DC women and it's created by awesome female creators. My favorite current DC anything is Bombshells. It's so good. The second volume's just come out, so it's really easy to catch up with, and I just think people should pick this up and read this because I know a lot of people are put off by superhero comics because they think they're not that type of comic book reader, or they don't know enough about the DC universe or the Marvel universe or the timelines or whatever. But this is completely independent of anything else happening in the DC universe, and you can totally pick this up having no knowledge or having heaps of knowledge about any of the superheroes or villains or characters or comic books or whatever. You can start reading comic books today. You can do it! Next we have a fantasy book, and I cannot recommend enough. Poison Study by Maria V. Snyder. I also met Maria V. Snyder, and she signed this book for me, and she's a really cool person. This follows Yelena, who was arrested for murder and is on death row, awaiting the whole death bit. But then they tell her that she can maybe skip the death bit for a while and become the poison tester for the commander. So maybe not die now, maybe die in 3 days when someone tries to poison the commander, and you have to eat it first. That sounds appealing. So she gets trained as the new poison tester, but there's a whole amazing world set up and an amazing magic system. There's no insta-love or any of that. And there were so many moments where I was expecting it to go the way of the cliche, but it totally didn't. And I can't wait to finish the series. So I recommend this book to you. Next is a book with little to no romance. And I'm going to recommend A Town Called Dust by Justin Woolley. I can't remember if I included this in my last trilogy video. I don't think I did. I met Justin Woolley at the same time that I met Maria V. Snyder, and he signed my book also. But this is a dystopian set in kind of desert Australia. And other than the whole water thing, which is very important, the biggest threat to the city called Alice is actually basically zombies, but they're called ghouls, and they're super thirsty, and they will drink anything, including your eyeball fluid. They'll drink you, basically. So we follow two characters, Squid, who's kind of from the outskirts from a poor family, and Lynn, who's kind of from a better off family, but both of their lives are drawn together, and they're not trying to like start a revolution or anything, they're just trying to like survive. And there's no romance, but the characters are amazing, and I totally recommend this. I can't wait to read the next 2 books in the series. Notice how bad I am at finishing the series. The next is a standalone. That is Airman by Owen Colfer. This is an adventure story about a boy named Conor who's literally born in an air balloon in like 1879 or something. 1878. I was close. And not only was he born flying, but he was born with a passion to fly. So he is living with his family and exploring the idea of flying, when one day his whole world is tipped upside down. And he has to work through all these different challenges and try and get his life back. And the key to all of it seems to be, funnily enough, flying. In some ways it reminded me of The Name of the Wind, because you have this character who you're told at the beginning has kind of become a legend, and then you're seeing that journey. Like, how are they going to get from there to this legend character that we've heard of? Next we have a survival story, and for that one I'm going to recommend The Martian. Any book with this much science and this many potatoes in it that gets me interested and keeps me glued to the last page has to be something special. Am I right? Mark Watney gets left on Mars by his crew by accident, and he is stuck there with these journal entries of hilarity. Armed with like potatoes and his botanical knowledge, he has to stay alive. I just love the spirit of this book. Your favorite book, friendship. This is hard because I really love friendship groups in books, but I'm gonna go with The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. Maggie Stiefvater has built awesome relationships because she's built awesome characters, and they complement each other and they butt heads, and they're just so deep and amazing, and I want to be friends with them. I'm gonna go into the plot because I'm sure that you've heard about this book a bajillion times. The true value in these books is the characters. Next is a book set out of the US or at a travel destination, and I'm gonna go with The Great Zoo of China by Matthew Riley. This is pretty much Jurassic Park set in China with dragons. Chinese scientists have figured out how to make dragons. This reptile expert CJ, she comes over to look at the dragons and check out the place, and then all hell breaks loose. And it's pretty much like a giant blockbuster. Like, I'm not gonna say this is gonna change your life, but it is so much fun, and I just recommend it for anyone looking for a good time. And finally, we have a book with your favorite empowering female character, and that has to be Skulduggery Pleasant. In case you haven't heard the other 50,000 times I've said this on my channel, this is my favourite series of all time. It follows a character called Stephanie Edgley, who is so awesome. We meet her in the first book when she's 12, and we follow her journey through to the last book when she's about 18. And basically there's this guy called Skulduggery Pleasant who should be dead but isn't. He's a skeleton and he's a mage. Stephanie meets him and they get drawn into this world of mages and magic and stuff, and the adventure begins. I absolutely love Stephanie Edgley. She's such an amazing, awesome, strong but flawed character, and we see her growing up and making mistakes and not always being the strongest or the smartest and not always making the right choices, but then having other awesome empowering ladies to guide her as well. There's also a bunch of other characters in this book who I love and could have totally fit this list. Like Tanith Lowe, who's like the big sister you never had with a sword. This is technically a middle grade series, but I feel like Harry Potter, it progresses into more serious and dark stuff as we progress through the series. And I can't recommend it enough. It's also freaking hilarious and amazing, and it'll make you cry. I've read this series at least 3 times. I think. Those are my recommendations for you. Let me know what you think. If you got anything to recommend me based on those recommendations that I was recommending to you. Huh? My camera's about to die, so I have to go, but I'll see you next time. In the meantime, check out the monthly recommendations Goodreads group if you have not already, and check out my last video. I'll leave a link somewhere. Okay, Bye! Camera is still flashing it. You know what would be helpful? Instead of just a flashing battery, it actually said, hey, you've got about 5 minutes left. And I could be like, hey, that's cool beans. In 5 minutes I can do a lot. Or it says, you know, you've got 30 seconds. But you never know. It's just flashing angrily. What does that tell me? Nothing at all.